Hello, and welcome to my little channel here on the interwebs. That's right. I am having a call to actions because I want to be fully representative here in Texas. Now, some of you may know, to the mockery of the Democratic Party, that Texas Democrat House members fled their duty. They're currently AWOL and currently in Washington, D.C. Now, I am calling them to come home to represent me. They're not representing me when they're AWOL and not doing their job to represent all of Texas, not just their party. Now, I had to Google just to make sure I wasn't going to be spouting some BS. But according as of July 22nd, which is today, at 5 a.m., Texas Democrats remain in Washington amid coronavirus cases and congressional hurdles. That's right. They have made their stink. They made national news. I think they got their point across. So more than 50 Democratic state lawmakers from Texas have now been huddled up in a hotel in Washington, D.C. for longer than a week. The Democrats abandoned their state to prevent Republicans a quorum in an effort to block voter integrity measures from being passed during a ongoing special sessions. Yes, I did change the wording because that's actually the more accurate wording. While in Washington, the Texas lawmakers are waging an uphill battle to get Congress to remove states' rights to determine their elections, aka voter or federal voter protections. I mean, they really do have protections already, and now dealing with an outbreak of, the coup or the coronavirus cases in their midst. State Rep Gina Hinojosa from Austin is one of the Texas Democrats in Washington that fled her duty. She is AWOL and it's time for her to go home. She says there's a lot about the situation that she didn't see coming. For one, she has school-age children, so she abandoned her children on this foolish quest, and she promised them that she'll be around this summer. Yeah, broken promises. If you can't keep your promises to your family, how do you expect to keep promises to your constituents? Just an honest question. The Democrats are currently fighting on two fronts to take away state rights. They are blocking legislation that would be among its provision to crack down on 24-hour polling locations and a drive-through at curbside voting, as well as create a number of new criminal penalties related to voting. So pretty much only one county, which is Harris, which is part of Houston, had 24-hour polling. Now, Austin didn't have 24-hour polling, so that creates a voter suppression onto Austin voters because we weren't allowed to vote for 24 hours, but Houston was. Small counties don't have the manpower or other resources to pull 24-hour resourcing. Austin would have been able to pull that off. Now, part of this bill is to create a uniformity so every county has the same opportunity or options to vote. Now, if there's a larger city that is using taxpayer money to be able to fund 24-hour polling stations. Now, I'm not entirely against the 24-hour polling station. It's just my counter argument is if only one county is doing it, isn't that voter suppression towards the rest of the state that weren't able to partake? Well, if I wanted to go at midnight right before voting to vote my cast, I am now not able to. But however, someone in another county is, that's kind of voter suppression. Now, they're claiming the fact that we're preventing Harris County from doing 24-hour polling is voter suppression onto their constituents. I mean, you could probably make a valid argument either way, but either way, they're trying to create uniformity so there's equal opportunities regardless of which county you live in to cast your vote. Now, this drive-through and curbside voting as well, this is a temporary measure in the light of the pandemic. Now, the pandemic, depending on who you talk to, I'm not too sure about the variants and how they're going to play a role into this. But it was a special case let's put it this way, and that we now have vaccines. There's also therapeutics that will help ease some of this, so it's no longer really needed. And also create new criminal penalties related to voting. Um, this is worded really interesting because it's not necessary fake news or false narrative. It's framing in a way to say that you're going to create penalties for people that are exercising their right to vote, which is not entirely true. There's new criminal penalties related to voter fraud or when you break the law and vote when you're not supposed to vote. That's pretty much what it is. It's if you break the law, there's new criminal penalties towards that. And they're also pushing lawmakers to pass sweeping laws that will make it harder for states to limit access to the ballot. However, you go to Delaware, I forget how many early days of voting they have. We have 2 weeks. I think they only have a couple of days. You go to New York, which requires, I think, photo ID for their voting law. How racist of them. How unprogressive of them. You go to some of these Democrat-ran states, and they have less time for early voting, and they have the photo ID. We're not really. I mean, you can make an argument for the 24-hour polling locations and drive-through and drop boxes, which are only put in place because of the pandemic. Uh, that's not really restricting. You still have to go and vote in. And Joel is said pushing for the change for the nation capital where Democrats control the White House and Congress. It might be easier than stopping a bill in Texas. Here in Washington, we're fighting on the front where we can win. So you pretty much left a battle that you were losing. You cut tail. You made a little tantrum. You got on a plane to go to the federal government where you might get something done. You are not elected to go to Washington. I am sorry. You abandoned your people. It's time to go home. If you go to my Twitter, you can see this post, and I don't understand why you're going to refresh. I guess you're going to refresh. I have this. I urge all Texans to look up who their state reps are. If they're on the list, we must contact them via email, phone call, or Twitter demanding they come home. So we could actually have a full Texas quorum so we could pass these laws. Now, whether you're against the laws or for the laws, the battle is fought in our legislature branch, not the federal government. Now, I am linking this Newsweek article right here, which actually has a list of all the people that fled or considered AWOL, and I demand that they come back home so we could actually have a vote. Now, if it's a bad bill, you could run on it as a bad bill and you voted no, and here's where the Republicans screwed up. If you don't vote, you can't have that ammunition. And you're not winning any votes here. You abandoned the people of Texas. Also on that one, I also have a link to where you could go in case you don't. No, not that one. There we go. Is the House, I think it's house.texas.gov. Member, find your representation. The link is going to be on my Twitter page. I'm going to provide the link to this Twitter post and a link to this site so you can determine who your representation is and see if they went AWOL. Because we do want our process to run. You cannot hold up the Texas government because you're going to lose on a bill that you're against, which is the voter integrity bill, not the voter suppression bill. And also put, as a Texan, I'm requesting that the Texas Dem House members come home to perform their duty to all Texans, not just their party. And I also like to add, please be respectful when contacting them, when asking them to come home. Let's keep it short, sweet, and always professional. Like I said, we need Texas to run. Just because it's a special session doesn't mean that they get to take their ball and go to another state. They're pretty much abandoning the people of Texas. This is not what we elected you for. We elected you to fight our battles at the state level. You are state representations to ensure that we have fair elections and pass bills and lay out process to make Texas better. We did not tell you to go to the federal government to make America better. We already voted for people on a state level to send to Washington to be our voice. So I am requesting all Texans to look up their representative to see if they are one of your members. Now, I think when I did this by county, all five of these people showed up. And I don't think these are actually the five people that I could get the vote for. I think it's only two. But either way, when I did it by county, these five people showed up. I've emailed them to their email that's on their profile. I sent them a nice, sweet email telling them to come home. You need to work for taxes and not just your party. So I'm requesting everyone, if you do contact them, be civil, be polite, but stern, and tell them that we want you to come home because we need our government to be functioning. And right now, our state is not functioning because they decided to head to Washington D.C. to take away states' rights stability to determine their own elections. And that's kind of the issue I have with the federal government with those two bills that the Democrats immediately try to ram through Congress, is that they're taking away states' rights to determine their own elections. They're not adding to it, they're straight up hijacking it, removing it from the state, which is taking away states' rights. Now, as I pretty much said in a couple of videos, I have no party affiliation. One year I might vote all Republicans, the next year I might vote all Democrats, or I might vote all Libertarians, never Green Party, unless they actually have good policies. But like I said, this isn't about party line. This is about a functional government. Now, the governor has every right to call a special session, and they have the ability to put more legislation into law during these sessions. We elected you to represent us at a state level here in Austin. So if you are a Democrat and you agree with them, I want you to keep this in mind. They went to Washington to take away states' rights. I implore you to actually read the bills that are in question, and I would like to ask, where are they suppressing the vote? Like I mentioned, one of them is the 24-hour drive-through. The other one is actually not the 24-hour drive-through, but the 24-hour polling, which only one county did. Keep in mind, one county did. Is that fair for the rest of Texas? And also, the drive-through, you can make a case. I'm not really going to die on that hill, as long as it's available for every district. And the curbside, that more is like mail-in ballots. I think if you're healthy enough to go stand in line for Starbucks, then you're healthy enough to go vote. And that's the hill I'm willing to die on. Yes, I understand there's special requirements for the elderly, of people over 65, military people stationed outside the state of Texas, and of course the disabled, and with good reasons. But anyways, you leave your thoughts down below. Check out my Twitter for all the information to find your representation that fled Texas. Contact them. Let them know that you want them home. Smash the like and subscribe button on all platforms. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.